Sometimes you get lucky. My wife and I went on our 20th anniversary trip a couple years ago in 2023 to explore some of the areas of Colorado that we hadn't been to. And man, this was a great trip. It was probably one of the better trips that we've done. We went to southern Colorado to start because we'd never been in that area. We explored the mountain bike trails in and around Durango. We hit the Colorado Trail. We spent time in Arkansas River to cool off. We went to the Great Sand Dunes National Park at night, which I highly recommend you do. We hit trails in the front of the mountain range. We hit more rivers to cool off, explored as many waterfalls as we could. We even encountered bear tracks on different trail systems, did a trail that these ladies sent me on in hopes that I would die because they had road rage against me. This is a whole different story. We chilled and enjoyed the peace of silence, mountain biked more trails, made our way back into high elevation because it was 120 degrees to ride our bikes. Thank you, Todd Wells, for the tip. We biked down Telluride, aka Mountain Village, in their lift access park, and had the best beer I've ever had with amazing views. That beer, by the way, is called Farewell Spaceman. We did some hikes, saw some snakes, did a huge hike in Gunnison where we saw militaries doing drills with planes in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. We made our way to Crested Butte for mountain biking and, of course, the best pizza at the Secret Stash. We hiked Mount Massive Wilderness, then biked in the same area, and I was even able to pull off a KOM on a mountain up and down segment called Warren Gulch Enduro on our way out of Colorado. I still have that KOM by 5 minutes. Now I know you're here for the near-death story that I've never told, so let's get to it. The day before the incident, my wife and I rode our bikes together up a very steep mountain trail called Jones Creek. The trail had a ton of exposure, as in you don't want to fall off the edge here or you're going to die. My advice in these situations to keep yourself from panicking is, when have you ever went off any trail if you are in control of your bike and not sending it? The answer is usually never. Just like when you are driving, if you are paying attention to the road, when have you just went off the road in good conditions? Never. So why would you now? We made our way to the top of that trail where we wanted to go, and it was all uphill. So that makes it very fun on the way back to the campground because it was all fun downhill. The next morning, I was planning on doing that 30-ish mile ride alone in the great wilderness of the unknown on the Hermosa Creek Trail. You can look that up and the Jones Trail on Trail Forks if you'd like to see where they are. Cell phone service is nowhere to be found most of the time, so if something goes wrong, well, you're kind of SOL. So I woke up on that beautiful morning, got everything together quietly while my wife slept in the camper van at the campground that is in this area. A little side note, there is a very nice host at that campground that makes sure everything is good multiple times a day. I started my ride with a good pace and eventually came into some cattle in a rancher. I let her know that I was coming. She proceeded to tell me to wait a minute while she got the cattle off the trail so I could pass. And once I was clear, I proceeded with caution. She also mentioned that there may be more cattle ahead on the trail and to just give them a little time to move off the trail. I did that and was not bothered by any cattle or any other wildlife this entire ride. I actually was a little nervous on the way out because I left early in the morning and there were fresh bear tracks over the previous day's mountain bikers tracks. And on the way back, those tracks, yeah, they were now over my tire tracks. The way out was gorgeous, with so much to see and not enough time to take snapshots of everything I wanted to. I noticed on the way out that there'd been a recent fire in some sections, and there was black soot on parts of the trail that made it slick. I was carrying my pistol. I also had a hip pack full of supplies and a large bottle of hydration on my bike, with another bottle in the hip pack. So the hip pack was fully loaded. It had everything I needed in it to fix almost anything that could go wrong on the bike. I even had a tube in case I could not get a tire to seal with the extra sealant I brought and the tire plugs. Eventually, I made my way to the point I was going to, and I turned around. This was 15 miles out. I had some snacks and then proceeded to make my way back. Seeing everything I just saw in reverse made it feel like I was on a different trail. On my way in, I made sure to take mental notes of some of the sections that had some sketch to them, so I was prepared on the way back. I've done a lot of solo rides like this where I could get into trouble if I'm not aware, careful, and planning ahead. I did not pass but 2 other people the whole time I was out there until I was almost back to the start of the trailhead. When I was getting close, I passed about 6 people that were just getting started on the trail. So let's hop back to about mile 20 to 22 on that ride. About 5 to 7 miles into my trip back. I was in one of those areas that had a fire, so the trail was covered in black soot and it made it slick on some of the rocks. I had just ripped a fun downhill and was making a nice arched right turn into a climb next to a cliff wall on my left and an exposed edge on my right. No worries in my mind. As I made my way up the climb with the soot between me and the hard pack, it happened. It happened about 40 yards up the climb. I did not notice I was on a boulder due to the soot covering it, and I was only going about 4 miles an hour due to the steep nature of the climb. So I was putting some power into the pedals to keep moving up. With the soot and the boulder combo, my back tire slipped, and at this speed, I thought the smart thing to do was to put my foot down, as the cliff edge was there and I did not need to do anything silly. I went to put my left foot down and lean toward the rocky wall and not toward the right, which was the edge. When I went to put my foot down, my hip pack grabbed onto the saddle of my bike, and you guessed it, my foot never touched the ground. It seemed like time went on forever as I tipped and fell to the side of the cliff's edge on my right side, and that was due to the way the hip pack was stuck on my seat. Thoughts of dying raced through my head. Thoughts of never seeing friends and family again also raced through my head. As I continued to fall over the edge of the cliff, my right foot was still clipped into the pedal, with that pedal now being lowered to the ground. This kept me closer to the trail rather than just throwing me over the edge completely. My foot then unclipped and the pedal stuck on the edge of the cliff, and my handlebars stopped the bike from falling by hitting against the cliff wall. If you've been paying attention, yes, I was falling upside down. And then I was able to move my other hand eventually over and grab onto a little bush that was growing nearby to relieve the strain of not having a lot to hang onto with 2 hands. To paint the picture, I was upside down, facing away from the trail with my back against the cliff. My feet were about 2 feet below the edge, and I'm about 5'10", so my head was almost 8 feet below the edge of the cliff. I hung on for about a minute trying to think about how I was going to get myself back up without falling, without knocking my bike off that was just barely hanging on, and without dislodging whatever I was hanging on to. While hanging upside down, I thought that if I fell, at least they would know where I was because my bike was there, as long as it didn't fall off the edge. I felt both holds that I had and had to decide which hold felt more sturdy, and also which hold I could hang on to while letting my body fall the opposite way so I could get right side up. My plan was to let go of the bush and let my legs fall toward the bush to help slowing down the leg speed from falling too fast, because I would not be able to get my other hand on the rock until they were low enough. I let go with my left hand, and I let my feet fall to the left into that little bush, which did help slow my leg momentum down. As soon as I could, I grabbed the same rock I was holding with my right hand with my left hand. This is a good time to make it very clear that you should strength train all the time to keep yourself as strong as possible. Another little side note, I am right-handed, so this played a role in my decision on which hand to let go. My left hand is a bit weaker with grip than my right hand, and that is because the last joint in my left thumb has been fixed since I was a kid. So that thumb does not bend there. Once I got myself facing the right way, I did manage to climb up frantically. As I moved toward the bike, I pushed it back so it wouldn't fall on me. Once I was safe and back on the trail, I sat there for a bit to collect myself, and then I proceeded on. And really, after only about 5 minutes, I was riding again like nothing happened. I wasn't going to tell anyone, but I did eventually tell my wife, and she really didn't like the story. My bike still has the scratches in the paint from the edge of that cliff digging into it. Hopefully you have not had a near-death experience like this before, and hopefully you never will. I would recommend that you always go out in the wilderness prepared for things to not go smooth, and always try to have a partner to go with you. I also think that a backpack is probably a better pick than a hip pack because it sits higher on your back and gives you a little more clearance from grabbing your seat. Now get out there and enjoy some epic trails. If you enjoyed this video, then you'll enjoy the video that has popped up on the screen. Click on that video and I'll see you over there.